that's one of those things that like, and I'm sure you've noticed, like when I was growing up, things like Star Wars were so like mocked, and you know, enjoying comic books was not popular in any way. So like watching Marvel become just a juggernaut of pop culture and watching Star Wars become, it was always, you know, the movies would do really well, but like just to have people embrace it in pop culture and like see kids like publicly enjoying it, and know that like they're not going to get mocked for that, it's just beautiful. And I love that.
I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons for that. One of which is probably just because the capitalism engine got behind it. Like, no, we could reach more markets. We could we could proliferate with this stuff and come on all fronts to
Mhm.
increase profit. But I also think that our society, from the time we're talking, you know, from early 80s on, has become objectively more accepting. Where obviously we're not where we need to be yet. We just had a tremendous racist backlash politically.
Mhm.
That's all I'll say on that for now. Um, so that's there's real problems, but just objectively, I think it's better to be a person who feels like you know, a little bit different, or like you have a secret now than it was when we were growing up.
Yep.
And a smaller version of that is okay, when you might have gotten picked on for liking comic books or Star Wars in the 80s or the 90s, and now everybody likes them, it's because somewhere in there we said, you know what, it's okay. Just life is short. Just be who you want to be. Go
Yes.
get it done.
And it's I mean, the internet has been such a boon for that, and finding other people who like what you like and finding out that you're not alone, and you can like share in that, and you can write fan fiction, and you can just enjoy like shipping people. Like it's amazing for all the horrible things the internet has also done, that like it has created such a, it's produced so many communities that can like it feels like you're not alone if you're, even if you're in like growing up in some small town in Iowa, which is where I grew up in my teenage years. um you can access people who think differently from the people around you, and you can see that there's more out there. And I'm sure it's got to feel just much more like there's there are better things to come, even if at the time you're in school in like a small town or something, and maybe everyone doesn't really like the same kind of stuff you like. So there's some real benefits to just the connection that the internet has brought us.
Yeah, and it's good for a little bit of humility as well, I think. Because I know that we had, you know, we had the person who was the really great actor who was going to go off to Hollywood. I think lots of schools had that through the 80s, and I probably still do. But now you can go online and you can see just how many amazing actors there are, how many amazing writers there are, and that humility is maybe the wrong word, but perspective of, oh,
Yes.
okay, well, humility. I could be a little bit humble. Certainly, this show has been a humbling experience for me in talking to so many brilliant writers. Because when we're in the 80s, we don't have the internet. You're isolated. You're the only one for the entire area in your town. You might literally be the best writer of your class. And that feels amazing because you don't have the knowledge of all the tremendous writers who are out there. Whereas now you have that, and it's both gratifying because you're like, oh, I'm not alone. There are so many people I can go and talk to, but it also limits that ego from running wild, is maybe a better way to phrase it. Because I think that has been, I think, for people, a real trap. And now, because you're exposed to how many brilliant people there are in the world, you can calm down a little bit. Like, oh, we are legion. We're going to be okay. And this is good news, but it doesn't have to always be all about me.
Yeah.
I say, and then I'm gonna hop off of here and look on social media, and somebody will have literally their devotion is to making things all about me. So
it's
that realization, I think, is hitting differently at different times for people.
it's definitely a double-edged sword. Like I love the concept of Goodreads, and if I go on it, I want to hide in my bed for the rest of my life, just because people rightfully are just, you know, they're being blunt. They'll tell you what they liked about your book, and they'll tell you everything they hated, and that's what it's for. But as an author to go and read, it's just it's I don't know. I'm sure there are authors out there who are very like confident in their work, and who are probably a lot more mentally healthy than I am, and who probably stay away from reviews, but like that's not me. And I'm always like, are people going to like this? And so going on a site that's just pure, like, made for readers to find books, and made for readers to talk about books, it's a dangerous, it's not a smart idea. I can get just crushed by someone. There's one comment that I will never forget where someone said about Half Upon a Time that he's trying to be clever and he's failing. And I was like, I'm actually not trying to be clever. Trust me, I don't think any of this is clever. It's just me trying to have fun. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I failed. And it's ridiculous, and I probably should let that go, but it's just one of those comments that has stuck with me. So yeah, it's definitely humbling.
Do you find that you will not ignore, but conveniently forget the 100 positive reviews you read, and then just narrow in on that one-star review?
100%. Like the positive reviews are so amazing, but they're very fleeting. Like they're just like it's like eating sugar, and you get that high for a moment and then you crash as soon as you see that negative review. Just, I don't know if it's I'm sure it's just how we're sort of made to look for the danger and like the negative to better like keep ourselves safe while there are, animals hunting us and everything. But yeah, it's not great for mental health. So I tend to just ignore reviews. Not ignore them. I tend to just not seek them out and kind of try to stay as far away from them as possible. Even positive ones, they can be like 95% positive, and they'll be like, well, and it was a little slow at the beginning. I'm like, oh, that I really tried not to do that. I'm so sorry. I need to fix that. I need to make that better next time. So yeah, it's a dangerous game.
Or you could find yourself, not that I would ever do this, but you find yourself agreeing with the 5 stars. Like, this book is brilliant, maybe the most brilliant book ever written. I'm like, yes, finally someone said it.
That's just not me. I'm always like, like, what? How did I confuse you? How did I trick you into thinking this is brilliant? I really appreciate that you think so. And I at least I was taught very early on to be just to thank people if they're giving you compliments, and never be like, they're like, this is my favorite book, and you're like, oh well, all I see are the mistakes, so it's not that great. You like saying that back to somebody who's a fan is just, it's rude, and it's not taking into account that it doesn't matter what you think of it, it matters what they think. So I've always tried to be very gracious, but yeah, I've never been able to internalize any of those kind of compliments, which is probably for the best.
Good way to take a big fan and turn them into a lifelong enemy. Like, your opinion is terrible.
That's your favorite book? You need to read more. Come on.
So have you ever found, as you're reading, that you find some criticism? Oh, that's actually well written, and that's something I can use going forward. So I'm glad I encountered that. Have you had that experience, or is it all just up, down, and a waste of your time?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's certainly not a waste of time. It's just sort of a negative thing for me, just emotionally. So I try to avoid it. But I tend to internalize things from my editor and editors like much more often, for practical reasons, just because they're the ones telling me if the book is good enough or not, and whether they're going to take it. But also just they know my writing, they know how I work, and they know sort of places that I can improve, and they've seen all the different drafts and everything. So they're just they kind of have that knowledge. I feel like most negative reviews are covering things that I already kind of know are weaknesses about myself, and that I'm trying to work on. And when things kind of fall outside that category, and someone hates something that maybe like other readers have liked, I tend to just think that's just a personal thing. Or vice versa. If people like something that other people hated, I tend to think maybe that it just happened to click with that one person. But yeah, it's something I probably internalize my editors and my agent more just for that reason, because they sort of know where I'm coming from, and I've seen kind of the evolution of all these ideas. Yeah.
Well, they're also still publishing you, so that's, I mean, that's about the most positive affirmation there could be, right?
It's true. And like, just it's always such a nice feeling to be like, to hear someone who you've worked with and who knows your stuff, to be like, oh, this is like my favorite of your books. That actually means a lot. Just because because it's their job, they've had to read all of my books, and so for them to really like one, it's just that feels great. So that kind of praise I do internalize, whether or not they're just being nice, but it feels good.
Well, if they're being nice and they're making an effort, well, the effort is what's to be appreciated, I think.
Exactly.